Stacy Lynn Harp is coaching with heart. Thank you for listening to this audio presentation. To learn more about Stacy and her coaching services, visit stacylharp.com. That's STACYL harp.com.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Coaching with Heart with me, your host, Stacy Lynn Harp. As my husband said in the intro, feel free to visit stacylharp.com for other information, and don't forget to sign up for my email there, where you'll be getting similar tips as I'm going to be talking about here in our daily show. What I want to do is I want to tell you that our topic right now is how to deal with the critical spirit or the critical person in your life, and that could be you, actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this slow. We're going to look at things little bite by bite, so it's not overwhelming too much. And if at any time you have any comments or questions, feel free to email me personally at stacylharpms@gmail.com, and I will respond to that as soon as I can. Now, the very first thing I always do when I'm talking about a subject is I like to look at definitions, because definitions matter. Even though our culture today might say they don't, they really do matter. And so the word critical, what does that mean? Because it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I went to the dictionary, dictionary.com, and this is what it said. This is what the word critical means. It means inclined to find fault or judge with severity, often too readily. Let me read that again. Inclined to find fault or judge with severity, often too readily. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes that describes me. And I think if you're human and honest, it probably might describe you as well. So here it is, the word critical. It means to find fault. How many of us have done that? Yes, raise your hand. I have done that. Or judged with severity. Yes, we've done that too, especially politically, haven't we? Or too readily. In other words, we've done it without thinking. We don't know all the facts. So the thing is when we're looking at the critical spirit, whether it's in us or somebody else, it's really good to know what we're looking at, what we're talking about. And so it helps me personally to be able to break it down and ask myself these questions. Am I inclined to find fault with people or to judge them with severity? We're not talking just judging them, but with severity. And if you've ever been judged by somebody with severity, then you know how hurtful and how painful that can be. And often too readily. Often you'll see on Facebook people comment this big long saying that the woman that is fat struggled with her weight her whole life, or the boy that's a bully was beaten by his father, blah blah blah, and it goes on and it says all these things, and basically the point of it is, look, you know what? You don't really know why that person is the way they are. So when we're looking at the critical spirit, one of the things we need to ask first, the Bible tells us to examine ourselves. Hard to do? Totally hard to do, because if you're honest, God is going to convict you of that, and He's going to show you things that you might not want to see. But the Bible is very clear that we need to examine ourselves, and of course it does say to examine ourselves to see if we're in the faith, which will be another topic at another time. So, the critical spirit. Are you this way? If so, do you remember the first time you felt this way? Do you know someone else who is this way? If so, do you recall what they were finding fault with, how they judged, and how fast they spoke? Our sin nature, unfortunately, can get us into a lot of trouble. In the book of Romans, it says all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, right? And that's so true. And when we react quickly, we judge quickly, we are inclined to find faults quickly, and we're inclined to speak fast. Often we really show how stupid we are or how foolish we are. So the first thing I want to do in order to start this series, I guess, on the critical spirit and how to deal with it is really to encourage you to look at yourself and to ask yourself, am I inclined to find fault with people? Am I inclined to judge people with severity And do I do it fast? And if you want to get really personal and be really introspective, I would ask you to ask yourself the same thing about yourself. Do you think so many thoughts that are so negative in your head? Do you judge yourself with severity? And if so, why? And where did that come from? And then I want to encourage you to meditate on Colossians chapter 4, verse 6, this scripture. And this is what it says. It says, "Let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person." Easier said than done, I know. And you know what? It's easier said than done sometimes with other people and not so much ourselves. So I would encourage you to also personalize that. And remember to let your thoughts always be gracious and seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer that negative thought that's in your head, and be gracious to yourself and be merciful towards yourself in your thinking. It doesn't mean to be dishonest, but it does mean to be a little bit more merciful. So these are some thoughts today on beginning to identify critical spirits in people and in yourself, and maybe something to think about to get you thinking about, why this is in your life and how you can change it. Believe me, I know that it takes a long time to change, and I also know that God can renew your mind and transform your heart. So thanks for listening, and tomorrow we'll continue this discussion on how to deal with a critical spirit.
Thank you for listening to this audio presentation. To discover more resources from Stacy Lynn Harp, clinically trained marriage and family therapist and biblical coach, visit stacyl.harp.com. That's STACYL harp.com. Coaching with Heart.